Hi,
Hello,
I'm Julian.
I'm Tech Tom.
We are Team Binge. We are here to talk about dark matter. This is episode 5. This episode is called Worldless, which I believe Worldless is the game you play every day where if you guess the right letter, it's like a yellow box or a green box, right? That's Wordless?
No, close. I'm pretty sure it's a podcast by like a couple of those guys from that Arrested Development show.
Yep, that's right. Michael
Yep.
Cera and Tony Scott.
Jonah Hill.
Yep,
Yeah, got it.
exactly. Well, this is starting off well. Tom, we are deep into this show. So we're at 5 of 9. We're trucking along. I enjoyed this episode, I would say, very much. There's some things that are going on in here I'm intrigued with between Tech, Jason, and Leighton. And then obviously I am invested in Jason and Amanda. Tom, from the top, I'm not going to ask you whether or not this episode tickled your fancy. What I'm going to ask you is, do you want teacher Jason to wind up with Daniela? Let's put marriage and vows and all that legal mumbo jumbo aside, okay? All that good book, like I know we're pro marriage, and we're pro like you get married and you die with that person. Let's set all that aside. You and I are on the book.
Done.
You're right. Okay. You said done very quickly. Anyways, what was your timeline that you're allowed to remarry after someone? Was it like 7 weeks? What did we establish in that other
It's
one?
either 9 to 12 months.
Sure. Yeah, that seems like you added some months to that. Anyways, okay. Are you looking forward to teacher Jason falling in love and marrying Amanda? Or teacher Jason ending up with Daniela? That's the crux of the show, right? That's what we're all wondering. A real Sam and Diane Sam or Tech Sam situation, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting because I think we get in this episode, like everything is from Jason's perspective and Jason trying to get home and Jason getting to his family and Jason getting back with his kid. But like Amanda is just as much thrown out of this world as anybody else. And I don't know if she necessarily wants to get back to her Jason, knowing kind of now what this Jason did.
No, she's seen the
kinda
nice
like-
Jason. She likes
Yeah.
the nice Jason.
But she gets a little bit later on in the episode with like Blair kind of saying like, hey, you got to like, you can't just be following him because what's going to be in his world? There's not going to be much for you. You have to make sure you're doing what you need to do for yourself. And maybe like they're going to figure out how to kind of use the box because they've always gone in the box together, right? Because the second they don't go in together, then they're going to be lost to each other. So maybe at the end, she'll be able to use it to find the world that she wants. But yeah, Blair had a rough time at it. So I don't know how that's all going to work out. But what's your thought? Are you thinking that Amanda and our family Jason are the ones that should end up in?
I think teacher Jason and Daniela are done. I mean, the way her eyes were bloodshot, she's clearly using again. And so I don't think he winds up with teacher or artist Daniela or housewife Daniela, I should say. I think teacher Jason and Amanda are meant to be together. I hate to say it because it goes against the good book, but, you know, for a situation like this, these are unprecedented times, you know? So we don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. We are in the box with Jason and Amanda, or the corridor. They're just like, all right, let's clear our minds and think safe and happy thoughts. They're like, say it out loud. And then he opens the door. And this, honestly, out of all the worlds they've opened, this is the one I feared the most. I didn't know they were going to do it. But like, this is the one where I was like, what if the water just pours in and they drowned? This was a big note for me, dog. Like, I was not on board with this at all.
This was definitely Jason's subconscious saying, man, I really got to pee right now.
Well, I thought it was interesting. They're soaking wet because I think they just came
Yeah.
from the snow level, right? Oh, I'm starting to think of this in video games. I'm like, they just came from the snow level. This is the water level. They've got to get to the water temple to get the gel or the gem in order to save Zelda. Like, that's what... So I assumed it was from wet clothes. They didn't explicitly say that, but that's where I thought it came from.
Yeah, and it's eventually once they get back, which I like the visual of them closing the door and then like the water kind of dissipating. But she kind of makes mention like it's more than just, you can't just think it because there's always something going on in your head, like the subconscious. And I think even the way she presents it, like you can't lie, like it knows And the way she says "it knows" just made me think of like Dwight from The Office about the computer. Like, you can't be talking about it. It knows.
It knows. It knows. Yeah, it was cool when they closed the door and the water like dissipates and they're just like laying there. I guess maybe that's why their clothes are soaking. Now I'm super confused. I did like how they let it pressurize. That's important. I don't think I have the patience to let something pressurize. I would be tugging at that door until the good Lord called me home. Because, anyways, all right. Tom, what word game were they playing? After they get out of this, they're in the corridor. What is this word game? Is it
I've
Wordle?
never played
Is it
this.
Wordless? Are they playing Wordless?
I don't think they're playing Wordless. I never heard of this game, but it does sound mildly entertaining. So it's called Ghost. So the idea, essentially, it's like word horse, where it's like you play against each other, you play round for round. If you don't get it right, then you get like a G, and then you get an H, and then you get an O. So like if you spell ghost, you lose. But essentially what you're doing is you're trying to spell out a word one letter at a time. So if I were to say C, you say A, I say R, like that'd be the end of a word car. But I got to keep that word going, or you would have to keep that word going if it's your turn. So you have to say another letter that is part of a longer word. So you try to keep that going as long as you can. So say you say A again, I could call you out and say, okay, give me a word that starts with C-A-R-A. You would have to come up with one. And if you can't, I win. Great explanation, huh?
No. The explanation was good. I'm so bad. Like, when our kids were at an age where they were dumb and my wife could spell things over their head, I would be like, there'd be 3 confused people in the room. They'd all be staring at her being like, C-A-N-D. Wait, what did you say? C-A-N-D-Y? One more time? Like, the amount of times I had to say to my spouse, one more time? Say again your last? What was that? Is a lot because I'm a terrible, like, verbal speller. So when you said C-A-R, I was trying to figure out what word that was. So you explained the game well. This is just dumb Julian coming back for a round of Ghosts. So I'm sorry.
We'll have to play it next time we're together. We won't play it on the pod because I don't know how entertaining that would be for our audience, but...
Sure. It'll probably be a lot of fun. I did like, and we could talk about it now. I know they get into it a little bit deeper into the episode, but like this idea that Amanda knows a lot about Jason and he knows nothing about her. And it is kind of a heartbreaking line when she says, he's like, I'm so bothered that you know so much about me. And she's like, I'm so bothered you don't know anything about me. Because they've clearly had like an intimate relationship. They've shared things with each other. And so I did think this dynamic, and maybe this is why I got to the like romantic. I mean, I think these two have chemistry. Obviously, they're both actors and actresses, and those people just smolder, even though they're trapped in a box and all wet. But I thought this dynamic was interesting and how they like go into it a little bit. So I like for a show that's very like sci-fi, like tech heavy, very Lavender Fairy. I find myself like the characters themselves to me are pretty interesting, and they've got a strong group of actors here that I am enjoying quite a bit. So
yeah, like the main people we're following, their backstories and where they're kind of coming from is very interesting. And then you put on top of that them going to these other worlds and finding doppelgangers of them, or like how and what could have been. It's very fascinating, and none of this I think would ring nearly as well if they didn't set up these characters so well in the first couple episodes.
Tom, if you had this ability and you went to visit me in 99 out of 100 worlds, I'm wearing a silk purple pajama outfit every time you show up. And you're like, oh, are you a millionaire? I'm like, nope, pretty poor, but this is my getup. So anyways, shout out to Leighton. Okay, during this conversation with Amanda and Jason, I believe we then discover who went into the box in terms of, because there was a debate whether or not it was 3 or 4, right?
Yeah, I think we confirm, at least get the other 2 names. We know it was Blair. We know obviously Jason. So the other 2 names were, I guess, just volunteers.
Salem and Alex. Volunteers. Yeah. Okay. Not
Don't know who they are.
Cannon
at some
fodder.
Point.
Not going to care about them at all. They've got dumb names and we haven't seen them on screen. They don't have SAG cards, so no, thank you. So we're not going to spend any time on them. What's important is Blair and Jason. And the fact that these guys take a little nappy nap in the box. So they wake up, they check the door, guess where they're at? They're at Velocity. And the building is super creepy and on lockdown. And guess who at that point is going back in the box? It's this guy. I'm not spending any time in Dangerous Worlds. No,
They hung out there for... I mean, I feel like they did a good job of getting back relatively quickly. But this place was definitely a disarray. And I like the way they kind of essentially found this, where they creeping around, they find like a dead body.
Ugh.
Do you think that dead body is a alternate Jason? Like, because that's in the same room that Jason was kind of locked in.
Oh, I didn't. No, I didn't. The hairline was wrong, and also the openings in the head and face were different. That guy had too many mouths and eyes, too many holes in his skull, or she. I don't know. I didn't give a thought to who was in the room. All I said was, "No, thank you. I will be going home." And yeah, did not like this at all. This was very like horror movie-ish, and you know me, not big on it. Nope, just give me a gun and shoot them all. You know, that's what I've always said. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. When they eventually find out that this was a world full of giant hornets or murder hornets, like, I'm pretty sure your weapons are useless against them.
No. Just the right weapon, Tom. Listen, I've been working on a giant hornet gun here at my house. I'll tell you about it offline. It shoots smaller hornets to attack the bigger hornets. And they actually mate with the bigger hornets to make more but smaller hornets. So there's no way this could go wrong. All right. Speaking of things that can't go wrong, we meet Blair. We find out in this world, Blair is an engineer because she didn't get into her safety law school. In Teacher Jason world, he's like, you're a biotech lawyer? I was like, I don't think that's a thing. What are they lawyering in biotech? I don't understand, but it probably is, and I'm just an idiot. She's been in this world for 3 months. She looks great. Once again, this actor, she is playing two different characters. It's like the family friend at the dinner party, and this one is the person that has been surviving dead like hornets or like murder hornets, to quote you, and she's doing a great job. I did not envy her position in life in this world at all.
Well, I'm fascinated by this storyline because I think she shows that she's been there for a long time. She kind of takes him up into that little, like, I don't know, observatory area above the box, and then like Jason's gonna touch her microscope or something, and she's like, "Hey, don't touch that." She has like this user manual she's been creating. She's been clearly doing a lot of research to try to understand this box. It's been there for 3 months, I think, like you said. I think when she eventually shows, and correct me if I'm wrong here, when she eventually shows the video of her coming out of the box, like, that is an alternate reality version of Blair coming into this same world of this Blair that's kind of presenting the story, and essentially brought these hornets into this world, and then they propagated and then take over the world. So the murder hornets didn't just like exist in this world when Blair opened the door. Like, another Blair brought them in, and that is like a whole new level of this box bringing terror to universes.
Yeah, and I think they play on this later in the episode, and I don't know if it's you and me and the generation that had to live through a pandemic, but like, my thought with Jason and the disease world was like, oh, don't go into the box if you're infected. And it's the same thing. And so it's interesting how they play Blair on this one, where it's like, she's like, I don't want to leave. It's almost like there's this sense of responsibility that she has to, if she brought this into this world, she's got to like solve it and stick around. And then the other part is the fear of like, hey, better the evil I know than the evil I don't know. Like, I could escape murder hornets, and then the next world is murder badgers. And murder badgers with wings are probably the worst thing anyone's ever dealt with in their life. So, I don't know.
Do you think that's kind of the play, as she feels like she needs to solve this multiverse that she jumped into? Or do you think she's, like, she kind of knows more? Because she's the one that essentially was going to tell Daniela here in a bit, or not Daniela, excuse me, Amanda, like, hey, you got to find your own path here. And I think she even says something like, hey, you think you know how to control this box, but you really don't. Do you feel like she knows more and she's going to kind of come back, or do you think this is kind of the end of her arc?
I don't think she comes back. I think the handing over her field journals is a pretty big indication of her like going down with the ship. So
Yeah, okay.
I mean, they did leave it open where she keeps some lavender fairy. So I'm not going to say we're not going to see her. She might be the ex machina that shows up in a dire like situation and pops out of the box and helps out. I'm leaving that box door open. But I did get the idea of her handing over her field journal and like being like, I'm going to stay here and stick this out, I thought was maybe the end, which would be a shame because I am interested in that character and I'd like to see what else. I mean, it'd be cool if she popped out of the box and she was like, listen, I learned to be a lawyer and those wasps are very litigious. And so once I brought the law to them, they are now an orderly society and we have world peace and murder hornet land. And she's like, and I have brought this to the U.S. And the U.S. is like, no, we're not big on that. And then, anyways, so I don't know, to answer your question, but those are my theories. And I'm sticking to them, and I won't remember them the next time we record. So all will be forgiven.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
We have Tech Jason doing box piloting 101. He's like, Leighton, here's how you use the box. Here's how you don't use the box. This is the pee corner. We've established a pee corner if you're overhydrated.
Is there a pee corner in a corridor, though, that goes on forever?
Yeah. That's where the door with all the water, that's the pee corner. That's why it's
Okay,
the
they
pee
open that door, they pee,
Yeah.
and they close
Yeah,
it. Okay.
there you go. The urinal door, they call it. All right. I did like... There was a debate in my house about, hey, does Tech Jason, who's traveled from world to world and seems to have controlled this, does he have money? And this episode clearly established that no, he did not come with a bunch of stacks of cash. They yada it, where they're like, listen, bank robbery is different, cash is serialized in different worlds, it never work out. I'm like, you built a box that time travels or mind travels. I'm pretty sure you could forge some dollar bills, but... the show's like, no, we've got to make money the honest way by ripping off a billionaire or millionaire, which we're fine.
Hey, I appreciate what you just did there. Mind travel. I feel like you should copyright that. That's very clever.
I don't think I originated that. I think mind traveling has been something I've done since I was in grade school when I was a terrible student and didn't want to listen. I would mind travel to somewhere else and think about gummy bears. So, yeah. Okay.
But they do get, before we jump on, I think we do get a little bit here where Jason talks to Leighton about you can't just travel anywhere. Like, this is an infinite multiverse kind of situation. Like, you have to, they're more parallel universes or parallel worlds where you kind of have to exist in some form or fashion in that world to be able to travel there, which I appreciate because it establishes the more boundaries to what's going on.
Sure. It's not something I needed them to tell me, but once they did tell me, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's why there's not going to be a world filled with dino nuggies. Or is there? Because dino nuggies are something he probably had for lunch. So, boom. Welcome back, dino nuggies. You already talked about this, but Blair giving the speech to Amanda about finding the right world. And are you on track with me that Blair doesn't want to leave because she wants to solve this, or do you think it's a fear thing?
My initial gut reaction was it was a fear thing. She doesn't want to go into a box because she doesn't know how to control it, so she's still doing studies. But to your point about trying to solve the crisis that she felt like she brought into the world, I like that because, again, she calls out Jason, hey, don't touch my microscope. I'm studying these things. Maybe she is trying to figure out some sort of, I don't know, magenta fairy drug to be able
Sure.
to take out the murder hornets.
The lavender fairy. Yeah, I'm with you. The magenta would be in juxtaposition of the lavender fairy.
Correct.
You're really stuck on her not letting him touch her microscope. Are you like? Do you think if he looked in that microscope, the note's going to be like, "Nothing's real. I'm going to murder them tonight"? Do you think there's like a insidious plot on that, or to me, it just felt like someone who had lived alone for maybe a while and was super paranoid because they constantly were being under attack by murder hornets. Like, I didn't see it as like I don't know. You really have latched on to the. Do you not like when people touch your your microscopes?
Oh man, if I had a microscope, yeah, don't come near it.
Don't touch it.
I mean, it gave me more about her. It gave me more like a backstory, I guess, essentially for her. My initial thought was like she's doing some sort of study experiment here in this world to try to figure out how to use the box, but I think it's the other way around. I think what she's doing is experimenting in this world to try to solve the problem in that multiverse that she had.
So you're afraid that if someone looks into that microscope, if there's just going to be a cube, it's going to be black Legos, and she's going to be like, "I'm studying that design." And he's going to be like, "A tesseract?" And she's like, "Don't be an idiot. No one calls it a tesseract. It's just called a cube, you jerk." That's what's under the microscope. It's just a bunch of Legos, Tom. Legos in a tesseract box. Anyways, all right.
That's fine.
Yes, good. I'm glad it's fine. Okay. Let's go back to Tech Jason and Layton. Layton, I'm trying to get a read on this Layton. Because initially Layton's like, he sees the world with his grandpa's alive. He's like, I'd give up everything in this world to go to that world to be with my grandpa. Great. Mm-hmm. Then it's, hey, I'll give you $1 million for every vial. Did you feel like there was like a shift in, we went from like, hey, I'm just sad with my life and I want to go to a different world to, I see the potential of this and now I'm trying to wheel and deal. I did not trust this Layton the more we spent time with him. Does that make sense? Was I touching on something?
We know he's a very smart and capable guy for like leading as a CEO of Velocity. So I think his initial thing is exactly that. He just wants to go into a different world. He feels like there's nothing to live for in the one he's currently in. But once he really understands more about the box and its potential, that's where I think his nature is like, I want to know more about this. I want to be able to kind of control this somehow. And maybe like the original Layton, like he was doing all this, what he says for the greater good to learn something from different universes and bring them back to this one. I don't think that is this Layton's goal, but I think he still has that curious mind and wants to do more than just live in a world with his parents alive.
Right. I've just got questions about like, why is he trying to buy out all of the vials, like what he thinks he's going to do with them. Because we get to an interesting conversation and we'll touch it at the end of the episode. But let's go back to Teacher Jason and Amanda. Man, it's very difficult to hop back and forth, Tom. But this is the cost of taking Lavender Fairy and being in the corridor, which we should have just called this podcast Lavender Fairy from the start, knowing that this show is going to come out years after we started doing this.
I mean, it was a book. We could have technically read the book.
That's fair. But we're staunch supporters of illiteracy. So no thank you to books. All right. The Teacher Jason and Amanda go back to one world. And this is the one where none of the cars are moving. There's no people on the street. And guess what Julian's reaction was, Tom? Go back in the box. This is not the world we want to be in. What are we doing? And he's like, I got to go home. I got to go see what's happening. And I was like, do you see all the Kia Sorrentos just sitting here unmanned? Go back to your box. And sure enough, things are not going well in town. And so he goes home. And who is to greet him at his home? Very surprisingly, I was not expecting anyone to answer the door.
Yeah, I was surprised he knocked. I would have just hit the lock and barred down this door. But yeah, we get Daniela, who has like, I don't know, her eyes already kind of like changing. And then we start to very quickly understand this is like a pandemic world. And the way they set that up, I think, was just devastating with like all the windows that have like this red, I don't know, banner flag or something like that. That's indicating that, they got dead inside or whatever. But when like a truck eventually kind of comes up and kind of tells them, like tests them and everything else, the doctor that actually comes out and gives Jason like the morphine and all this other stuff was actually the doctor that was in the hospital in episode 2.
Oh,
so it's kind of an interesting little callback there.
So they don't have the budget to hire more actors and actresses. You're saying that they had to use
exactly.
the same person too. It's Conan's doctor in all of these episodes. Dr. Arroyo, I think is his
Arroyo,
name.
Yep.
Arroyo.
Go watch the Hot Ones with Conan O'Brien. It's fantastic.
O'Brien, yeah. Good luck. This was I did not enjoy this. I did not enjoy watching Jennifer Connelly die. I did not enjoy Jennifer Connelly swapping painful memories prior to dying. I just felt like at any moment Tom Cruise would burst through the door and offer to take him up in that sweet P-51 Mustang. Like, what's going on here? What are we doing, show? I did not enjoy this as well.
No, I agree. I mean, again, this show is very heavy on the drama for sure, and I think a lot of this is just laying the groundwork and deepening the connection of Jason wanting to go home, like being able to see his wife in this state, and it's essentially needing to teach his subconscious, like if you really need to go home, you need to think about it at a deeper level and not just like, hey, I want to go home and open up a door because other things would be going on in your mind. So I think we might see more of these kind of instances of him deepening his relationships with members of his family in different multiverse.
Okay. That's one way to take it.
Okay.
Hear me
You
out.
took it.
All right, hear me out. When he leaves the house, Amanda, I think, spoils something here because very quickly she's like, listen, that wasn't your real wife. Your wife is in a different timeline. Mm-hmm. If you read into our boy Joel Edgerton's eyes, which he's an actor, a lot of eye work, what I felt he was going to say when he approached Amanda is he was going to say, she's dead. My wife is dead. Turns out I'm single. I felt like that was kind of where he was leading after this scene in order to lead us to Amanda and teacher Jason. Obviously, now his vows are no longer valid,
null and void.
He can remarry. And so I thought there was going to be a proposal on the street in this episode. But
so do you think Jason was trying to pretend that this was actually his real world? And he's like, yep, hands washed, she's gone.
He's like, unfortunately, per Tom's timeline, now that my spouse is gone, I'm eligible to remarry in 7 minutes. So let's just stand here and watch the clock, Amanda. And Amanda's like, none of these rules make sense, and who's Tom? And he's like, oh, you haven't listened to the Lavender Fairy podcast with Julian and Tom? Let me tell you about it. Anyways, that's what I thought was going on. But clearly, I had mind traveled during this episode. And so that's what was going on. Okay. See, and this is what leads to the next scene, which is Daniela and Tech Jason having what we like to call in our family, family meeting. And so she is not real happy with most of his decisions. And yeah, I did not, because this is where teacher Jason's like, listen, you're not going to have to worry about money. And she's like, oh, where's the money? And he's like, well, it's coming. It's not, it's 80%, 90%. He's like scrambling for some sort of when the money's coming. And I felt like this was the most real conversation two married people have had in this entire show, which is, where is the money? Oh, we're going to make it big soon. I just need to, and then her saying the money's not real. I want a divorce. That's how I read into it.
What's your take with Daniela in this world? Like, is she, like, there's got to be a big falling out between them, right? Like, all the erratic things that Tech Jason is doing. Like, what do you feel is going to happen with Daniela? Like, did you still get a sense that, I still have a sense that she might try to get, like, follow him to the box or try to do something with the box, but I could be wrong.
That's fair. I think it is a wildly aggressive decision to not consult your spouse when you buy a Kia Sorento. Like that, a Kia Sorrento is a decision that takes a family meeting and everyone. So I think that alone is maybe, and once again, it goes against the good book, but a divorceable offense. So I think she's going to probably, I mean, it's interesting that they have had Charlie and her both pick up on like, Dad's acting strange, right? And she's like, yeah, I think that's like a burnt orange Kia Sorrento. Like, Kia Sorrento's fine, but that color? Like, I don't know. I think they're starting to question these vehicular decisions, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. I think we then jump to Teacher
We have
Jason.
we have like a Groundhog's Day situation where they go back into the box, they leave the box again, and they kind of like are in the same general like abandoned warehouse. They walk out the same path, but this time it's got people. So you're like, oh, cool, they did it. Did you notice as they're walking down the street, there's like a tell where you can tell this is not their world? Did you notice it or clock it?
No.
There is a marquee, like a movie theater marquee in the downtown area where they're walking, and on it, it says The Fugitive 2 and My Best Friend's Divorce, which is kind of funny, like just play on those different movies, some movies that do not exist in our world, so you kind of know that this is a multiverse.
One of those movies sounds like a movie I would see on opening day. The other movie sounds like one I would protest outside with a board that says divorce is. Anyways, I did not notice those. I thought they've done this twice with this show where they're cutting between Tech Jason and Teacher Jason, and they're trying to convince you, hey, they're going to run into each other or they're in the same place, but they're not. And so it's a funny trick that the show does, and I think they do it well.
I want to ask you though, I feel like they don't do the whole like music draw and then snap noise, like because they did that in like the very first episode or second episode, where every time they went back and forth, they did that little whoosh deal. But they don't think they still do it. They just don't do it consistently, and I'm kind of wondering why.
Oh, I think Zippo filed suit. Zippo's like, you can't use the sound of our snapping lighters that the soldiers took in World War II. So
they were in the murder hornet world, very litigious.
Yes, yeah. This whole thing, everything's litigious.
It makes sense now. It makes sense.
So Teacher Jason thinks he's made it to Tech Jason's world, or at least back to his world, and he's going to confront Tech Jason. And you go into your house, Tom. You look around, and he chose to grab a knife, a large knife. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you the opportunity. Same scenario. You go into your house. What do you grab in order to either defend yourself? I guess he's going to go murder Tech Jason. I don't know why a weapon was absolutely necessary, although I guess Tech Jason took him at gunpoint, so he's bringing a knife to a gunfight, possibly. Yeah. It seems like with all of the worlds out there, jumping to the conclusion that you're going to need a knife, I don't know. Tom, what are you grabbing in your house in order to attack?
I feel like I get
other
something,
self?
Yeah, a little less conspicuous, maybe like an umbrella, so then I can just kind of walk in my bedroom like, oh, it was raining outside, or I thought about rain outside, but you can still poke somebody with that, pretty good.
Right, and then you're not spouse, but spouse is like, it's Arizona. I know you're not real. Why do you have an umbrella? Tom, your answer is a Lego knife. That was your answer. It was
a little toy Lego sword.
It was laid out there. You're just carrying the Balrog scene from Lord of the Rings as a Lego set, and you're ready to smash other Tom over the face.
No, I would say I do have a Lego globe that you and my wife were kind enough to purchase for one of my birthdays.
Sure.
So I would probably just be carrying that over my head, ready to smash.
Yep, that's right. That's right. They'd be like, oh, that's Atlas holding the weight of the world. Oh, what an artist. Anyways, Tom, if you're going to ask me the same question, a gun.
Yeah.
All right. So we find out that this is not his world. He's shown up at a Daniela that I guess knows him, but knows him as a convict. and
Oh, this is
ex-husband.
Prison Jason world. This is Prison Jason.
Prison
You gotta
Jason.
be careful of those Dementors.
Prison Jason, I'm pretty sure is a Halloween movie, right? Anyways, jump to so many. There's a way to hold a knife where you don't have it out in front of you immediately. Like, put it behind the back. So then she's got to be like, hey, why are you from prison and what do you have around your back? And he's like, I brought you this German steel knife for cutting birthday cakes. I don't know. Anyways, this was all harrowing and heartbreaking, and but he does escape. Him and Amanda escape, and we find out. Oh, this was once again. This show is doing some emotional things that I don't really appreciate. Amanda's like, oh, we need a car, so she goes to her mother's place or her place. We already know that her mother has dementia or something along those lines. And in this world, guess what, Tom? Amanda's dead. And so when she shows up to visit her mother thinks she's a ghost, essentially. And I did not appreciate why we did not get any translation of this conversation. I don't know why they did it. Did your subtitles? You didn't have a translation of her talking to her mom, right?
No, I did not. Which I think is, I don't know, it's kind of like poetic, because like speaking another language, you don't know
That's fair.
like really what they're saying.
Yep.
And I think you're almost essentially seeing it from Jason's eyes or from his ears, I guess, where he sees it's a touching moment. I think he even says like, hey, you're gone in this world. You should probably hug her and we should leave. So her kind of giving that little thing and then giving them that moment back in the car of saying like, oh, wait, what did you say to her? And her kind of saying, like, I gave her hope. And yeah, it was incredibly touching.
It was touching. You've sold me. I wanted a translation because I need things spelled out to me, but I actually think, like, you get the gist of it, not understanding what's being said. It was funny when he's like, oh, you gave her hope, and then we stole her car, and they're, like, laughing about it, which is just, she's a fun ghost, essentially, which is good. And so, I felt like this was a big reveal, Tom. They end the episode with Tech Jason going back to his world, the world where he abandoned Teacher Jason. He grabs 2 more packs of thermoses and PB&Js off the wall because he needs them for subsistence. And he talks to his employee. His employee's like, hey, is that you? He's like, go back to work, Laura. I was like, what? Like, what a jerk. Like,
yeah, right?
Good
well, she even asked him, I think, at one point, like, hey, like,
what's
you're
it
going
like?
down this box. What's it like? And his response is, it's hell. And I'm wondering, I mean, do you really think he thinks it's hell? Like, is he starting to think that this thing is, like, a monstrosity? Or he is trying to present this thing as, don't touch this box. It's going to bring you nightmares, so stay away. Because obviously we end this episode by him kind of saying, and now knowing that the other Jason is around and running in a box, that he needs to seal up the one that he has.
I think you nailed it there at the end. I think Tech Jason is realizing he's created this, but he has found a world that he wants to live in undisturbed. And the only way he's going to be able to live in it undisturbed is if no one else travels through the box. And so that's why he went out and he killed Alex and he killed Salem. And he released murder hornets into Blair's world in order to take care of all of the other box pilots, which is just a dumb name. But I think he is closing down avenues. He's making this so terrible that no one else is going to travel. And this is why he has the conversation with Leighton of, hey, once you're comfortable with this, I'm going to send you through and then I'm going to seal this box. And so no one else is coming through this world. So I think it's that he is preventing someone else from ruining the world that he's found. But I also think it's funny that he's human and like, say he picks things up with Danielle and Charlie and like they're good for like a year and then something happens where they have a falling out. Is he then like, this world actually kind of sucks. I miss being really rich. I want to go back in the box. And then he's just there with like a, steel wool trying to unseal the box so he can time travel again. I'm sorry, mind travel. So dumb. So that's
how
that's
you
where I
seal the
landed on
box is an interesting question too. Like, Does he just
Gorilla
bury it?
Glue.
Does he use this Gorilla Glue so he can't open it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what the extent of that is. Because we have seen a box that was buried, right? Like they opened it up and it was just in the dirt.
Right.
So, who knows?
Right. I think you surround it by snow, CGI snow. No one can get through CGI snow the right way. I think that's what it is. No, I don't know what the next episode will bring. I found the Leighton in this one interesting in terms of I felt like he is not going to go along with this plan of giving up his money, being sent to his grandfather's world, and the box being sealed. Despite the purple silk pajamas, I don't feel like he's going to be down with that. So I'm interested in that. And then I do feel like Teacher Jason is getting closer and closer to like his world. And so it'll be interesting if he can actually make it there. Although, like in this one, he gets into that warehouse. He's like, hey, that's where I was tied up. Like all these things match, but then like one thing is off. So what keeps him from going to his world and going into Prison Jason world? Like what is that?
Well,
like,
and you mentioned like the fact that Tech Jason can get back to his original world. Like he knows exactly what to do or what frame of mind, how to control his subconscious. Like that's the biggest question to me is how and when can he get seemingly full control like Tech Jason does?
right. So it is possible, but you know, how is it? Is it writing it in a journal, Tom? Because we see him write things in a journal, you know? Is the written word, which once again, we are pro illiteracy, is the written word the answer to all this? Because if it is, I say no. Seal the boxes and we're done with the show. Anything we missed in episode 5, Tom?
No, I think we kind of covered it all. Again, I thought it was a lot of fun little extra twists. I'm glad we got a little bit more of Blair's backstory and get to see some of the other box travelers. I'm assuming they can't just throw names of Salem and Alex of these other box travelers, that we're not going to run into them in some form or fashion. But yeah, I mean, we're 5 episodes through. We've got 4 more. It's been fun, man. It's a fun ride. I'm excited to see where they go.
What I'm surprised in is the Puzzle Master, because we've done After Party and a number of True Detective shows where you've solved things because you're a super sleuth. I'm surprised that you didn't come to the conclusion that when you take Alex and Salem and you move those letters around, it spells out dark matter. So that's obviously the solution. But maybe you figured that out and you were just too humble to mention it to the rest of us. That's fine.
Yeah.
All right. For those of you that are still listening to us, we appreciate you. We do this only for the fact that we get random emails from people across the world. And so you could reach out to us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com if you have theories, if you have something that we missed, if you're offended by something. 2 out of those 3 things we would like to hear from you about. If you're offended by something that is not something we said, maybe we'll consider it. But we love to hear from people, so reach out to us there. Tom has our Friendster account that he's going to talk about now. Or our Bumble, as he likes to always bring up, which is weird.
Yes. So Twitter and Instagram at Team Binge or at Team Binge Podcast. Follow us on there. We got plenty of other shows in the back catalog too. So if you're enjoying our conversations for this one, Julie mentioned a handful of them, go check them out. And if you have time and you're enjoying us, rate and review us on Apple Podcast or the podcast of your choosing.
Wonderful. Well, the next time we talk to the world, we will be talking about episode 6 of Dark Matter, and Tom already knows the title of it. It's been pre-released. That title is...
Wait, it's
Giggle. All right. That sounds like quite an episode.
Oh, I can't even say the title of the next one.
Oh, it gives it away?
Well, Bing Married People.
Oh, great.
I can't actually say the name of this because we are a podcast for children.
We are a podcast for children. All right. I have been Julian.
And I have been, I don't know, what was I at the beginning? Tom Alpha? What am I?
No. Alpha Tom's going to get you canceled. You're, I think you're Teacher Tom? Tech Tom? Maybe?
Tech Tom. I'm Tech Tom. All right. Bye, everybody.